Today we welcome in the governor, the mayor, the lieutenant of the Knicks fan base, the second best Knicks fan that I know to me, CPTheFanchise. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on, bro.
Anytime, man. Anytime. Hope you're doing well.
Listen, we can't do a Knick recap or a preview of the next season or an off season without talking to this guy because he's got all the info. So there was no other show I was going to do. Obviously, I know every one of you wanted to hear some Knicks stuff from me, and we had to get this guy on to do that. So before we dive in, let's do RIP. Shout out to Bill Walton and his family.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's sad news. One of the legends of the game. And CP, did you ever have a chance to interview him or come across him in any way?
Unfortunately, not. Never met him. Was never in the same room as him. But obviously a legend of our game, a legend of from a media side, from a NBA player side, just a true legend of the game. And so he's going to be sorely missed for sure.
Yeah, and I think he's one of the first guys to go from being a great player to a great analyst to a great color guy. Like he's one of the first guys to come into the media space from being a great player and then be great in both industries.
Yeah.
So he was kind of a pioneer in that way.
No question. And he did it his way on his terms, which I respect a whole lot about guys. Like he crafted his own brand.
Yep.
It was never polished. It was never buttoned up. He said what he felt, but he called the game. He called a great game. And so, yeah, like I said, it's a huge loss for the basketball world, man. Huge giant.
Yeah, and he was kind of the Charles Barkley before Charles Barkley, kind of in a way.
Yeah.
He brought that kind of humor to the broadcast. So let's dive in. Let's dive right in.
Mm-hmm.
When you watch the Celtics, on a scale of 1 to 10, how annoyed are you when you watch them, knowing how vulnerable they are, that if the Knicks were healthy, that they actually could have been in the finals?
10.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most annoying.
10. I watch these Eastern Conference Finals, these conference finals, and it's again, I call this off postseason for the Knicks, the biggest what if for the Knicks. I said that, look, they're still going to have a good run, but at the end of it, you're going to be wondering what if. And that was just based off of Julius Randle injury. Then as you kept going, you lost Bojan Bogdanovic, you lost Mitchell Robinson, you lost OG Anunoby, and you're still fighting. So it's just tough, man, because these Celtics, they are vulnerable. I wouldn't say they're easy, but they are vulnerable.
No, they're vulnerable.
And this Knicks team, the team that we saw in January that went 14-2, that was clicking on all cylinders, based on the impact of the Anunoby trade, it just left you thinking like, damn, this team could have went to the finals. I truly believe it.
So I didn't get a number from 1 to 10. How annoyed?
10.
Okay,
10.
me too.
Yeah, it's hard to watch,
I also think that even without Randall, they would have had a chance to beat Boston. If the rest of the guys didn't get hurt, you would have needed Bogey, I think, and Mitch and OG and all those guys to be able to beat them. But I think even without Randall, they would have had a chance. With Randall, for sure.
Yeah, I think offensively they could have provided that depth. If Bojan Bogdanovic could have been, close to himself, I think he was playing a little bit better in that Philadelphia series, and then unfortunately gets rolled up on by Nicholas Batum. You had McBride, who was shining bright in that Philadelphia series, and if Brunson is still him, I think they could have given it a good fight. I think they could have given Boston a good run, man. It's just unfortunate. Those injuries
and it just would have been
sports,
nice to see that.
Yeah, it's part of the game,
Part of the game. It would have been. I think it's going to be tough for the front office in this offseason because they didn't get a chance to evaluate the team that they would have had this year to say, okay, hey, if they had Randall, if they had OG, if they had Brunson, hey, if they got swept by Boston, they would have said, okay, maybe we need a second star to go along with Jalen. But if they had played Boston 7 games or even gone to the finals, then they might have been like, okay, maybe we just make a tweak here and there, and this team's good enough to win an NBA championship. But I don't think they got that answer this year, and that I think was the most unfortunate part of the season.
Yeah, that's why I say what if, and Julius is the big factor in it because last year he's dealing with the ankle injury, so ineffective. The year before that, they didn't make the playoffs. The year before that, he was a deer in the headlights, just not the guy that took them to the playoffs, although a lot of people want to give him credit for it, and he deserves it. But you're still left thinking like, damn, like, is this enough? Do we have enough as we move forward into the offseason? Those are the questions that Leon Rose and World Wide West, those are the questions they're going to have to answer.
So before we get to that, a quick thing on the Pacers series, Game 7. Did you feel like that they shouldn't have brought OG back because he wasn't ready? Or were you under like, oh, let's bring him back, Willis Reed, let's give the motivation and the inspiration to the team? Or were you in the camp of, it was kind of too desperate to bring him back, and it just didn't make any sense.
Well, he only played 5 minutes, so I don't think it hurt them per se. I think it was worth the shot to see how he felt out there, what he looked like, and then when he got out there, his gait was nowhere close to what it should be. So I think Tom Thibodeau did the right thing. He saw it. We all saw it on the TV. Like, yeah, he's not right. So he gave him the quick hook. But I think in a game 7, when it's do or die right now, the team has their backs against the wall. It's got to be all hands on deck. And Josh Hart made his effort. OG wanted to give it a try, and he did. He came out with the 5 miraculous points, but they did the right thing by keeping him out after that because he clearly wasn't the same guy.
Yeah, I agree, and I think overall there were some people who said that the Pacers got 7 basically, and I rewatched actually the game. I can't believe I actually did this, but I rewatched the first 3 quarters of the game because I wanted to see. I was at the game. It's a different perspective when you're
Way
there.
different.
You're emotionally into it. You're kind of in a different space. I wanted to watch it from a different lens and see, okay, how many open shots they get? Because when I was live, I felt like they got so many open looks, and obviously shooting 67% and 76 in the first half, I think it was, that you're going to win most games doing that. But I felt like the Knicks really helped them because of the fact, I thought they were tired. And I don't know if you felt this too, but I really felt like game 5 was an anomaly. Game 4, 6, and 7, they looked tired in all 3 of those games.
Yeah.
And I think that played into the game 7, them Pacers shooting well and getting such open looks. But some people thought that with OG out there, they're basically playing 5-on-4. And that led to the Pacers seeing the ball going in the basket early, getting open looks. And that was the reason that spearheaded them having such a good shooting game. Do you play into that or not really?
Listen, man, me and you, we were at game 4 with Knicks against Philly. And the way they left that game, I was like, damn, I don't know how much they have left for even that series. And so, I tell fans all the time, every single year, so the playoffs is as much of an endurance test as it is about talent and skill. You've got to be able to get through physically and mentally just to move on game after game, round after round. This is after game 82. When you've went through the entire marathon of a regular season. And so I'm with you, man. I just felt like mentally, physically, these guys really didn't have much to give. You saw that out there in their effort. You saw it with their mental mistakes, common mistakes that guys like a Jalen Brunson doesn't make. They can't inbound the ball. Just like, just certain things you just watch with the team and having watched the team over the course of a season, that's uncharacteristic of them. So at that point, I just felt like, it was time. The Pacers were hitting at a record pace, and the Knicks, with OG going out and then Brunson going out, it was just time to wrap it up.
It was too much to handle. And I think the game that they screwed up was game 3. Yeah, that was the game they had to get if they were going to win that series. Because once OG got hurt, and I was at game 2, and I said to my brother, I said, we weren't even that happy because we saw him blow a tire, and you knew at that point there was most likely he wasn't going to come back in that series at least. Yeah, and I was just like, without OG, this is going to, I know we're up 2-0 already, and you have to win only, they have to win 4 or 5 games, but that's one of the guys you can't afford to lose. No. Aside from Jalen, he's probably the next guy you can't afford to lose. And I think game 3 was the game they had to get up 9 with 9 minutes to go. If you're shorthanded, I always say when you're the underdog or you're the shorthanded team, you can't blow games. No. You have to win games that are there for you for the taking. And I felt like losing that game, that was the beginning of the end to the series with the injuries that they had, with the fatigue and everything else set in. So with that said, I want to get because there's been so much obviously on Thibs, right? With the injuries and what side people are on. Did he play the guys too many minutes? Did he not play the guys too many minutes? I'm going to tell you my opinion, but I want to get yours first. What side of the line are you on with Thibs? Did he play the guys too many minutes, which led to some of these injuries? Or do you feel like it was more of a fluke thing and he had no choice but to play the guys he was playing?
I think it was a fluke thing. The latter, man. I'm going with the latter. A lot of fans I've been debating with about it, and fans feel like they can just say, "Well, it's obvious that he's playing these guys too many minutes." Well, what type of measurement is obvious? I'm looking for objective facts that say playing guys too many minutes can lead to this injury. I don't see the direct correlation. You can get a hamstring injury in the beginning of a season. You can get a hamstring injury in the end of the season. Look at Tyrese Halliburton. Close to the second half starts, he pulls up with a bad hamstring injury, right? Is that overuse? Who knows? Josh Hart with the abdominal. We see how many times we see baseball players in the beginning of a season go out with an oblique strain. Is that overused? Is that going too hard? It's just hard to really know. What I do know is, based on the guys that were on the team, those were the guys that needed to play the major minutes. Once you made the RJ and quickly trade for OG and Precious, you lost depth, right? Then you lose Julius. Next guy's got to step up. That's Josh Hart. You know, in a perfect world, Josh Hart's coming off your bench,
right?
If Julius Randle is healthy, and so it's a next man up situation. Everybody that played had to play, and you really didn't have that many options left on the bench. I mean, people like, play the guys on the bench. They played so well in the game 4 blowout. And I'm like, no, I'm not looking for Daquan Jeffries and
Jacob Toppin, right?
I'm not looking for Jacob Toppin to save our season here. Like, it was just a little unrealistic to expect much from those back end of the rotation guys.
I think for me, I'm like it right in the middle. From this standpoint, I think for the most part, you had to play you're not playing the end of the bench guys. Let's just be, no offense to Jacob Toppin or Jeffries. Right. They're not real basketball players. Okay. They're G leaguers / at the end of the bench guys. We're not talking about them. The one mistake I think he made was not playing Burks earlier in the playoffs. And I think he proved it in the Pacers series that he was capable of playing in the playoffs. And he was a guy that he had on the team a few years ago, was a key contributor to that, whatever that was, 2020 team.
Yeah.
And my opinion was, when Bogey got hurt, he should have taken Bogey's minutes. That was my only complaint. Everything else, I have no problem with what he did. I have no issue playing the minutes. But if he takes Bogey's minutes there, you still have an 8-man rotation. He's a scorer off the bench, which you actually needed, and he would have replaced Bogey in doing that role. And then he could have played 15 minutes. You could have taken a few minutes off Hart's plate. You could have taken a few minutes off OG's plate. And then even Brunson, who got banged up, a few minutes off his plate. So that would be my only thing. And do I know that doesn't lead to the injuries? I have no idea. I don't think we'll ever know. And that's why I think people who say, oh, they got hurt because Thibs, we have no idea what would have happened. I don't think any of us know the real answer. But I think at the end of the day, the guys that they could have played who were NBA basketball players in the playoffs, Burks was the one guy that I thought, not before Bogey's injury, but once Bogey got hurt, he should have been out there taking his minutes, and then who knows what happens after that. And then I don't think anyone could have complained.
Yeah.
And I think that's my standpoint. How do you feel about that take?
Listen, man, anybody who watches my show knows I'm the Burks guy. I'm Burks Hive, the big money Burks. I'm the president of the Hive. But also just knowing Thibs or knowing his tendencies since he's been here, he's a guy that likes chemistry. He likes trust. He wants to be able to trust. And Burks did not earn his trust when he got here. He gave him every opportunity to show him that he belonged in the rotation. And Burks was just out there just playing in his own world. Every time he had a bad game, I'm like, yo, this guy's out there playing 1-on-5. This is not the guy who I expected to come in here and contribute. And so I understood why Thibs took him out of the rotation. McBride was playing well. He was on a rocket. He deserved those minutes. And so when Bojan Bogdanovic goes down, I was thinking the same. I'm like, is Burks gonna play? But I don't, I can understand Thibs not going there because he was so bad. But then he proved us all wrong, came back in the Pacers series.
And you're right. Like, Thibs is big on trust. If he doesn't trust you, he's not going to play you. No. I think we've seen that with guys in the past. Fournier, obviously, for a couple of years. And we saw it in the playoffs last year when Quickly had a bad couple of games. He kind of got buried in that Miami series. And even Grimes to some extent, too, because he was hurt.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I'm more of like the human being. I know Burks was traded midseason. That's always a tough scenario, coming to a new team with a new role, having to fit it with new guys. His family didn't move from Detroit. I know these are excuses. I don't want to make excuses. But as a coach, I'm always trying to figure out what I would be doing is, okay, there's reasons that Burks didn't play well. He's not washed up. He's only 31. He had a great first half of the season for Detroit, which is why you traded for him. So I just would have been okay being out of the rotation in the playoffs. But then once Bogey goes down, hey, play him in the second quarter. I always say you don't lose the game in the second quarter, which I firmly believe. If he doesn't play well, then you don't play him. And that would have been my only thing. But overall, I don't blame Thibs. I think for the most part, he had to do what he had to do. The only thing for me was Burks. But I agree. I understand what you're saying about the trust thing, and I can't kill him for it. That just would have been what I did.
Yeah.
So with that said, I think the biggest win to me from this season was us, the Knicks fan base, right? Because I think everyone realized in the media, you saw ex-players who have podcasts talking about how great the Knicks fan base was, how they're like a European soccer fan base, and how it's like they've never seen anything like it. So do you take full responsibility for that as the governor of the Knicks fan base?
Nah. Never, 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 man. I definitely can't do that, but I can say that unequivocally, this is the best fan base in sports. That's just hands down. The way that they get involved, some people don't like the celebrations outside the Garden. I say I
I think it's
love it.
great.
You got one
I think it's
life to
great.
live. Go ahead and do it. If you're paying $1,500 for seats in the 400 sections of MSG
Yeah.
after a win, go ahead and get your money's worth. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, make that all part of the experience. And so, nah, man, it's the way this fan base is supporting this team generationally. It's not just the young people. It's people
It's
from
everyone.
the 70s who've seen those championship teams, and the people from my era, which is the 90s, that's seen this team. And everyone has the same sentiment that this team really brought that energy back to New York that was sorely missed for a
For sure.
long time. Like, you had teams that had a nice little season, right? The Knicks tape teams in 2012-13, Carmelo had a great year. They won 54 games, and the team last year. But this team, for some reason, it just really defined and embodied that grit and grind that New York was all about. And so it was great to see the fan base really rally around them.
And I think one thing that people don't realize about New York, they think we're like this bougie city that's
Yeah,
like we have glitz and glamour. Okay, we have a little bit of that as a city, but we're really a hard nosed, blue collar. Like if
yeah,
we haven't won a championship in 50 plus years, we'll love you if you leave everything out there on the floor. Look at like
yeah,
all the Nick greats, Ewing, Sprewell, Houston, all these guys who have been it. Carmelo, he won one playoff series. He comes to the
right.
Garden, they shower him with an applause. Like
Yeah,
we just want to know you left it all out there and you did everything you could for us as a fan base because we give everything to you as players. And I think that's what people don't realize from people outside New York, like how great the Knicks fan base is, because we just want to know that you give everything you have. And I think for us, we're so hungry for that championship. And I think this. I love all sports. I'm
mhm,
baseball, basketball, football, everything. But this isn't basketball town when the Knicks are great. There's nothing
yeah.
better than the
No,
Garden.
yeah, no question about it. If when you look at some of the greats who are, immortals in this town, they're not the superstars, they're not the divas, they're the guys who get it out the mud. Those
Yep.
are the guys who we remember forever, man, because it's a great story. Right, like the Jalen Brunson story is a great story. Josh
Underdog
Hart,
story.
DiVincenzo, like this is why we love those Nova Knicks. You look at Precious Achua, him coming through, like this whole team when Julius went down, there was no lottery picks
Yep.
in their run. And McBride, like everyone has that story where they're just grinding their way through to the pinnacle, man. And that's the story that New Yorkers really rally around.
The underdog story. All
Underdog
those guys
story.
were written off at some point, and now they've come and they found a home and they're doing big things for the Knicks. So I'm going to ask you this. I'm
Mhm,
going to put you on the spot.
mhm.
Everyone's questioning, is Brunson the best Knick of all time?
Yeah,
Which listen, it's early. He's only been here a couple of years. Where do you put
yeah.
him with the greatest Knicks of all time? Is he ahead of Carmelo for you? Is he behind Carmelo? Where do you put him in the rankings?
Greatest Nick. And like during their time,
Knicks,
right?
only when they were on the Knicks.
I'll put him third.
Behind who?
I'll put him third behind Walt and
Okay.
behind Ewing. I'm putting him
Okay.
third.
That's
I'll
fair.
put third. I'll put
That's fair.
Melo a close fourth. Brunson already has had much more success than Melo so far. But I think Melo's teams were just poorly constructed. But I
Agreed.
think Brunson has and will have a better Knick career than Carmelo, based on one, his play, and two, the competence of the front office. I think he's in a better spot than Melo was for sure.
So last thing on this past season, we'll get to the free agency. Brunson said he didn't think the season was a success because they didn't get close to the championship and they didn't get close to the title.
Yeah.
When you get a chance to reflect as the governor, okay, you and
Mhm,
Perk, right?
mhm, mhm.
How do you kind of describe this Knicks season? Do you think it was a success? How do you view it?
Yeah, without question, the success. I mean, I love his mindset and his
Me too.
attitude because he wants better for himself and better for the team. He's a leader, natural born leader. You look at he's cut from a different cloth. His family, great family, level headed leaders
Yep.
themselves, go getters, and so that mindset is what we need here. But to me, you look at what they did. It was an outstanding season. To get the second seed, to fight through. Get to Indiana. Yes, they didn't get there. They didn't get to the Eastern Conference Finals, but look at the team. It was decimated
Yeah.
by injuries. I said this plenty of times. There's no other team in the NBA that could have gotten through the playoffs and to the point where the Knicks did, like the Knicks. to
I agree.
survive those type of injuries. There's no other team that
No one would have gotten to Game 7. I don't even think. Like
No,
to get to Game 7 against Indiana,
no,
and Indiana's a good offensive team. They're a great home team. Like to
yeah,
get to that position with Brunson and basically, what's left of Josh Hart and the guys that they had out there, they were playing McBride and Precious.
yeah.
No offense to them, they're really good complementary players, but they're playing them big minutes down the stretch of games because that's what they had left.
Yeah, no question. To get the second seed, they made 2 trades in the middle of a season. They made 2
Crazy.
trades in the middle of the season. The first one left a big gash in the bench, but then you had internal development from Miles McBride. You go out, you make the next trade for Boyan and Burks. They're terrible, but nevertheless, they're still able to get the number 2 seed because the OG trade was so impactful for them. And so, to me, man, when you look at the career year that Brunson had, Randle making his third All-Star team, even though he wasn't there for them. The internal developments of a Miles McBride. Look at what Precious Achiuwa did in that month of January to help contribute.
Big contributions that I think get overlooked. In my opinion.
Isaiah Hartenstein taking another step. When he gets the bag this year, this offseason, he's got Thibs to thank. He's got Brunson to thank and the whole team for making him a better player. DiVincenzo. I looked at Brunson's contract last year as the best contract in the sport. I look at DiVincenzo's mid-level exception contract as the next best. And I think McBride's would be the next. Nah, man, I thought there were several wins for this team, both as individual players and for Coach Thibs as a coach, that, this is without question a successful season.
I agree with you. And I think, a lot of that, Brunson gets so much credit, obviously, because he had such an incredible season. And I think he should get a lot of credit for that, especially what he did in the postseason with the team that they had left. But like you said, so many guys, and partially you got to give credit to Thibs because I think he's evolved his coaching style a lot this year, especially. His offensive system is different. He's willing. When was in the past, was he ever be willing to play Josh Hart at the 4?
Yeah.
That's like completely against anything he's done in the past, playing a small ball lineup at times because he had to do it. And I think you got to give him a lot of credit, Brunson a lot of credit. And like you said, Dante, career year, Hartenstein, career year. Those guys were incredible. So my first question as we get to look to next year and we look forward, what do you do with Julius Randle? You personally, would you trade him? Would you look to trade him? Would you only trade him if you got a player that you felt like was a big upgrade in, especially in the scoring department? Or how do you view him as a fit next season and going forward?
It has to come at an upgrade. There's only 2 players that I trade Julius Randle for right now. It's Giannis, and as much as I hate to say this next one because fans, get emotional that he KD. He bailed on the Knicks the first time he had a chance, but I think he's a perfect fit on this team. I just keep it real with fans. I'm like, yo, you guys got to put the emotion to the side. We're just talking basketball here. If that Phoenix experiment blows up, they started with the coach. Next thing is going to be James Jones, and then players might be next, or if KD raises his hand. But if they had a shot at him, I would go with him. But other than that, I'm keeping.
What about Booker?
I wouldn't trade. No.
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. That's not necessarily.
Because I would do 3 guys, and I would include Booker with your 2 guys. I agree.
Yeah.
I don't care about emotions. I would say you apologize to me, I'll put it behind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't care. It's in the past. He's a great player. If he's going to help us win, who cares? So I would agree with the 2. I would add Booker to that, but why not Booker for you?
I'm just looking at guys who could potentially ask out, right? Like KD's had a reputation for just being like, it's not working out here. I'm going to take my bag and leave. Giannis, I feel like that could potentially implode eventually. But Book, we don't know. What is his relationship with Ishbia? He's a homegrown talent with the Suns. A lot of people want to put him here because of the relationship with Leon Rose, but he's not really one to necessarily voice his displeasure with things, or he hasn't as yet. At least I haven't heard it.
Same.
So I'm just going off of like guys who could potentially be out there. You just don't know until the offseason unfolds and, that disgruntled player raises his hand.
And there's always someone that we don't expect.
Always someone.
I only threw Booker out there because we know Phoenix has been very much a hot mess this past season. I think anyone could ask out from that group. I think KD's a great option. I think Booker could be, but Book, I think, would be a great fit because you slide him right. I want a 2 or a 4.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone in between, right? So you slide him into the 2. I put Dante on the bench as your super 6 man, and I think that would fit great.
Perfect.
And so I'd put Hart at the 4, and Hart would continue. But because I think part of the reason why Hart was so great this year is because he got a chance to play the 4, and him playing small ball with Hart and OG at the 3 and the 4, whatever, however you want to label them, I think was huge for the Knicks this year. So I wouldn't mind seeing that if it meant getting Booker at the 2. I'm with you. I'm not just getting rid of Julius unless it was an upgrade. And I want to mention one player that a lot of Knicks fans want, a lot of them pine for, that I don't think is as good a fit as a lot of them think, and that's Mikal Bridges. And I like Mikal Bridges a lot as a player. I think he's a terrific player. I think Julius is a better scorer and a better number 2 option than him, and I think the Knicks need that more than anything. And if they got Mikal Bridges, where would he play? I don't think he's a 2 guard. I think Dante's a better fit with the movement running off the ball, the athleticism at the 2 guard position than he is. And you already have Hart and OG at the other position. So to me, I don't think he's as good of a fit on this Knicks roster with or without Julius as all the Knicks fans do. Do you agree with that, or would Mikal be someone you'd look to as well?
I've always liked Mikal Bridges. 2017 draft, whichever draft that they dropped the ball completely and took Kevin Knox. I was floored because I couldn't believe that they would pass up on this guy. I mean, he showed you the most tape on the biggest stage that he could be the 3 and D at least wing for the New York Knicks, and Scott Perry passed on him. But I thought when he first got to the Nets from Phoenix, he showed a little more potential from a shot creation standpoint, and then kind of came back to the pack. Now, was that a result of just not being happy there in Brooklyn? He doesn't seem happy there. Or is it the league kind of catching up with him being on a not so good team? I think that there's, a little bit of both there. But the next person, if you're going to move Julius, the person that you bring in, like you said, potentially a book, that person has to be able to bend defenses.
I agree.
He's got to be a guy that can command double teams, shadows, hard hedges, like guys that you have to pay attention to, because it's just like, you're watching Western Conference Finals right now in crunch time when you see Luka Doncic going one-on-one. And you're like, what is the defense?
The shots he's making are so absurd. What do you even do with that?
Right. And so you need someone who's going to command those doubles, who can make his team better just by his sheer presence. And so that's why, to me, when fans are like, oh, get rid of him, he's not clutch, he's not that. Yeah, those things could be true, but you don't just add by just getting rid of him. Yes, because you're putting pressure, too much pressure on everyone else.
So I'm assuming just from what you said, you would keep Julius over trading Julius for Mikal.
Yeah. I wouldn't trade him straight up for Mikal Bridges.
So if I'm giving you the GM hat, I fired Leon Rose. Okay, he's gone. Leon, you did a great job. We love you. We're going to give CP the job.
Yeah.
What big changes would you make, if any? Yeah. And just overall, what would your team look like next year? What would your priorities be? You can go through free agency, Hartenstein, OG, whatever you want. Give me your team next year.
Yeah, priorities: re-sign OG at all costs, re-sign Hartenstein at all costs. I think he brought a different dynamic to this Knicks team and to their offense that they haven't seen in a long time. And so I thought he emerged as a two-way player, not just, just shooting offense or playing offense and making good reads. I thought defensively and getting on the boards, he improved dramatically. And so he's going to deserve that raise. So you bring those two guys back. They need a backup point guard coming off the bench.
Agreed. I was going to say that, yeah.
They should have the mid-level exception. They should have it. And so you're going to have to look at some targets. Is it, I don't really like this name. Is it a campaign? There's not too many strong guys out there. You have D'Lo out there. I don't like him either.
Tyus Jones. Get him from Washington.
If you can get a tie, he's a free agent. If you can
he's a free agent. Okay, so is he an option? I think he'd be
absolutely. Yeah. You go get a Tyus Jones. You put McBride off ball. I think that's a nice group right there. That's a nice group. You get Smart and you put McBride in his natural role, which is in that off ball position, and you let him shoot it. They have 2 draft picks. I think they'll take 1 wing depth.
They actually have 3, including if you count the 38th pick. In the second
round. If you want to count that one a second. So I think at the very least, they would probably use one of the 2 in the first round and then maybe consolidate the back 2. Yeah. Go get a wing. I want some upperclassmen, wing depth. We're going to get into our draft coverage on KFTV later on this early next month. And so, but they need wing depth. I want upperclassmen wing depth, someone who can go in there as plug and play ready, and that can add to that depth. And so until that big name emerges, those are the priorities, man. Just add to the bench depth. You get Julius back, and keep it pushing with that squad.
So you pretty much, and I think I agree with this too. Unless you get the Giannis, the Durant, and maybe even the Booker, right?
Yeah.
You'd rather run it back with the team that you have, make a couple
Yes.
tweaks. I think adding the backup point guard, I think, is a
Yeah.
huge thing. They need to alleviate some of the ball handling duties from Jalen. And I think you're right. Deuce is, at least at this point of his career, is more suited off the ball. And he's
Yeah.
a really good off the ball catch and shoot player and obviously primary defender. But I don't think his strengths are ball handling, bringing the ball up the court, taking that off of Jalen. So I think, especially in the playoffs,
Yeah.
I think that's a need. I think you bring obviously Bogey's on the team for another year. You have him.
Well,
And I think getting a win.
So the Bogey thing, it's not guaranteed. He's got a partial guarantee that they're going to have to pick it up. Well, I think they will. And what could be interesting here is that because in the beginning when they first got him, I thought, they're going to use him for the next blockbuster.
He could be used in a trade for sure.
He could be used in a trade. So are you looking at that potential 17, 18 million with some more draft picks to go get another, not all-star superstar player, but another OG type who with this team can help elevate this team by being a better fit, whether it's that bench backup point guard or another wing. So that could be a wild card there. Again, there could be a name that we're not thinking of right now that you can use that salary of Bogdanovich plus some draft capital. They have a ton. And maybe bring in somebody that we're not even thinking of.
Where are you on Donovan Mitchell? Are you off him completely?
I'm like 50-50. Man.
Me too.
I'm like 50-50. He's one of my favorite players in the league.
Me too. And I like he's from New York too.
I love it. I love his game. But I'm with the naysayers in that is a fit ideal with him and Jalen Brunson sharing the ball in the backcourt. I'm not so sure.
And especially defensively, I think is what I'd be most concerned about.
Defensively, the issues between him and Darius Garland over the last 2 years in Cleveland, were they an ideal pairing? Why and why not? They seem to struggle when they're together, but when they're on their own, they seem to shine, right? When Garland went out, Donovan Mitchell became this,
weird
2010 passing machine, and then vice versa. So, the fit is not ideal. Would I love it from a talent perspective? Sure. I'd root for it all day, every day.
I think it depends on what you'd have to part with, right? Like that would make you think about it one way or the other.
Absolutely. And then, based on the people I spoke to and Ian Begley and some other guys, it doesn't seem like they will be as hot after him as they were the previous time. Now, that could all change when they get into the offseason. Maybe Cleveland drops his asking price. Does he say, hey, it's New York or nowhere? Then, if you're getting Donovan Mitchell for the Bogey contract, maybe Mitch and a couple picks, you might have to roll the dice.
I think, like you said, at this point, I think we both agree. If they re-sign Hartenstein, and obviously that depends on, he's going to have to take less money, unfortunately, because that kind of clause he had in his contract. They only gave him a 2-year deal instead of a 3-year deal, which means they don't have his early bird rights,
right?
Which means they can only give him, I think, a little over $18 million a year.
Yeah,
I think he'll get somewhere in that range. So it's a matter of, a team may pay him 20. Will he come back to the Knicks for 18 and a half? That's going to be the question. But let's just go hypothetically that he resigns. I don't think you could keep both him and Mitch at that type of money. So I think, like you said, Bogey, Mitch would be your couple of guys that you could package contract-wise with picks to get a player to add to the group, a core guy to add to the group. And I think that would be, if it was Bogey and Mitch and 2-3 first-round picks, oh God, that would keep me up. I would consider it. I would
I'm still doing it, man.
Do it. And I don't have to give up Julius. I think I have to do that.
Right? Yeah. No, I'm still doing it, man. You got to take a gamble. I still think, look at what Kyrie and Luka are doing out there. To me, you still need 2 stars to spearhead a legitimate run. I'm not talking about, this team gets hurt and you luck your way into it. I'm talking about being bona fide, where at the end of this thing, you're holding that trophy up like, there's no doubt these guys were legit. You still need that talent upgrade. Is it Julius? Could it be someone else? We know Brunson is going to play the part. We know that. He's shown you 2 years in a row. He's bona fide.
He's a dog too. We know that.
Solid, right? You just need that second guy to emerge, because I think this team has the pieces, man. They play defense. They rebound the hell out of the ball when they're healthy, right? They have the 3-point shooting efficiency now with Dante and OG. McBride got his playing time based on the strength that he could shoot the ball, because you knew defensively was his floor. He was straight, but his shot was so erratic. It was so, non-existent for many parts of his career. Now he's showing you he can knock it down.
He did a complete 180 with a shot.
Complete
When he
complete
got
180.
more volume, he actually got better.
Yeah, yeah. So I think they have it all, man. They have the 1 star. They just need one more piece to add to that core, and I think they'll be all right.
So speaking of Kyrie and Luka, assuming it's Mavs Celtics, because I think that's what it looks like at this point. Who do you have in that series and why?
Man, I think these Mavs are so hot right now. It's
Do you think they're just on
hard.
a wild run? They just
It's
got there on that magic carpet
I think
ride.
they're on a run. But you know what's going to be interesting because you have the best offensive backcourt that's going to be going up against the best defensive backcourt in the
True.
league. Who's going to give? Who's going to give there? But not only that, man, Kyrie and Luka have been excellent. They've been clutch every time in the fourth quarter, and those guys get the ball. They just take it up a notch. And that's what superstar players do, man. They're
Yep.
able to raise their game to a level that the ordinary guys just can't get to. And that's how they separate themselves. But their bigs have been playing really good basketball, man.
They
The
can thank
Gafford trade, good.
the tanking, that we would have gotten their pick, and they took Lively, obviously, and the Gafford trade
Major.
was huge. But those two guys are just perfect for their team.
Gafford was huge, and the thing is when you're watching these guys on bad teams, I was always like, yeah, Gafford, he's all right, but because he's on such a crappy team like the Wizards, you don't really get to see their true impact on a team. And last night, another prime example, he's making clutch defensive stops in the fourth quarter there, and so I gotta go with the Mavs in 7. I'm gonna go with the Mavs in 7
on the road.
And I'll say this:
they've been a good road team in the playoffs.
They have been. What's up with Kristaps?
And you know what the thing about that is too? I think everyone's just saying when he comes back, he's just going to be good. That Cavs trade, we've seen it.
Yeah.
Durant obviously a few years back and then tore his Achilles, and obviously Giannis was not rushing back. And now with Kristaps, when he comes back, is he going to be right? Is he on a minutes restriction? Like
right.
I agree, and that's a big loss for them because I think, and I'm asking you this as if you're a Celtics fan, are you concerned that they haven't been tested yet? Because you look at Miami, no Butler, no Rozier. That series is over. The Cavs was going to be tough to begin with. Then they lose Donovan for 2 games, and they have no Jared Allen the whole series. That series was nothing. And now Indiana, they're a nice offensive team. They were never going to threaten them. And then they lose Halliburton in the 3rd game. They blow the only game that they could have won in the 1st game. So the Celtics, to me, have just been coasting. They're going to have to play at their best level to beat Dallas in the finals. Would that concern you as a Celtics fan?
Yeah, absolutely, man. This might be the lightest run to the NBA Finals that we've ever seen.
Ever.
I honestly, ever. But the one thing where, I question with them is, do they have that killer instinct to put a good team away?
Do you put that on Tatum and Brown when
absolutely,
you say that?
Absolutely. And more so Tatum. Look, he's a great player, man. I'm not taking anything away from him. He's a great player. All the accolades that he's earned so far is well earned. I mean, how many times do they go to the conference finals? Those two guys, they built that thing for sure. I just don't like their execution down the stretch in a lot of these games, man. That first overtime game in game 1 when they beat the Pacers, in overtime, both those guys showed out, and Jaylen Brown saved them in the end of the fourth quarter, taking the overtime. But if you look at their fourth quarter offense,
that was a loss, first of all. Yeah.
To me, I mean, they're chucking threes left, right, and center. You're Jason Tatum, man. You're 6'8", 6'9", towering over guys, and he's just, to me, his approach in crunch time is just way too soft. He almost had a boneheaded turnover in that game 1 win in the fourth quarter. But you conversely, Luka Doncic and Kyrie, man. I mean, Dallas is getting it done without even shooting threes.
Yeah.
To me, they're the more clutch players. With Kyrie, he's got that championship experience.
I think he's got that chip to prove people that he's, not the guy everyone thought he was the last 7 years and, basically being a detriment to any team he went to. He wants to prove, hey, I'm a winner. And I'm going to show that in these playoffs. And I agree with you. And I think what I see in Boston too, and I see this so much in Tatum because he's the best player and he's getting all, he is going to get the credit or he's going to get the criticism. He looks tight. He looks like he's got all the pressure. He's feeling the pressure. You could see it, like you said, at the end of game 1, the fourth quarter, he was bad in that fourth quarter. He played great in the overtime, but that was, they had to save him. Jalen had to save him to get there. He just looks like he's having no fun. He looks like he's playing tight. He looks like if he feels that if he doesn't win a championship this year, the whole world's going to cave in on him. And I think that's, to me, yes, the softness and too many jump shots, which I agree with. I think it's coupled with this mentality where he's feeling the pressure, and that's going to trickle down to the rest of the team. And I think one thing I said, I don't know if you know Jared Dubin,
Yep, yep,
NBA
yep.
sports writer, but he's a friend of mine. And I spoke to him, off camera about the Celtics having too many guys of the same personality. I think they're all really good players, but they don't have a guy that's like, you know what I mean? Like, not that they're not dogs, but like the guy that's gonna dive on the floor for a loose ball. The guy that, not necessarily vocally, but they had Smart in that role, and they lost him. And I don't think that was a bad thing. I understand they were going in a different direction, and Drew's been amazing for them, and that's an upgrade. But they don't have that guy that when things are going downhill, can he galvanize as a leader? I don't know that they have that leader, that guy who's like a Brunson, like a Hart, right? Like, I don't know if they have that. Do you agree with that? Do you see that in them?
I think Drew can be that guy. I think he can be that guy. I mean, he made the clutch stop on Nebhard in game 3. And I'm looking at that stop at the end of the game. I'm like, number one, the anticipation was ridiculous. And number two, how many guys are going for that ball, given the game situation with the game on the line? That's Drew Holiday for you, man. Yeah. And, game 1, he was brilliant with 26 points. I think he can be that guy just by being the adult in the room, quote unquote, who's going to make a smart play for you. He's got to get the ball, because that was another issue I had with them in that game 1 win. In the fourth quarter, he barely touched the ball, and he was
having the best game of all.
He's cooking. And when the Pacers are putting their toughest defenders on Tatum and Brown, and rightfully so, Drew Holiday has an advantageous situation here where you're going up against a team that's not that great defensively, where he can use his championship all defense mentality and offensive skill sets as well to take advantage. That's where I think if the Celtics do win, he once again has to be an X factor for them as a key decision maker in crunch time on both ends.
I agree. All right, before we let you get out of here, first of all, I really appreciate it. And, for anyone who watches this and doesn't know, CP has been one of the great people to me as someone who started out in this industry and just been so good to me. And I appreciate that. I've been a fan of yours before we even spoke, but just really helping me as someone new in this industry, new in media. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it and how much you've given me.
No
it's
problem.
Just someone who's learned from you. So thank you for that.
No problem.
I'm going to give you a couple Nick quick hitters before I get you out of here. I'm going to give you an either or, and you pick one, and we move on.
Okay.
All right? Mike Breen or Marv Albert?
Breen.
Okay.
Yeah, I go Breen.
Oakley or OG?
Oak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Leon Rose or Dave Checketts?
I'll go Checketts.
Ooh, okay.
Okay. Checketts, yeah.
Better trade. You can only pick one.
Okay.
Hart or OG?
OG.
Okay. I think so too.
Yeah.
More painful moment. Charles Smith, the Ewing finger roll, the Starks 2 for 18, or the Reggie Miller 8 points in 9 seconds?
2 for 18.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because that was where they were the closest to the title.
Heartbreaking.
Okay, better moment. Starks dunk, LJ 4-point play.
4-point play.
Better 3-point Selly. Brunson with the kiss, or Melo 3 to the dome?
3 to the dome. I got to go 3 to the dome. Definitely.
I think I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 more. Better jerseys, the city jerseys or the statement jerseys?
The statement ones with the Jordan logo?
Yeah.
Oh, throw those in the garbage.
Anything
with the Jordan logo, throw it in the garbage. We'll go with the city joints.
Okay, and last one. The 2 most underappreciated Nick all-star greats, I would say. Spreewell or Houston?
They're right behind me, man. I feel pressure. Damn.
You can call a tie if you want.
I can't call a tie, man.
I agree. I'm giving you an out.
I mean, Houston.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going Spree by a slight margin, but I'm going Spree.
All right.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll obviously chat soon. And, listen, let's see what happens in the offseason. Hopefully we can chat during free agency when things start to happen.
For sure. Keep me posted, man. Great work. Great season. And, man, let's catch up again in the offseason and beyond.
I appreciate that. And check out CP on Knicks Fan TV, at Knicks Fan TV. Are you on TikTok also, by the way?
Yeah, Knicks Fan TV on TikTok.
Knicks Fan TV, TikTok, YouTube, IG, everywhere?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, cool. Check him out. He's the best in the business, the best Knicks fan there is. And we appreciate him coming on. Thank you, CP.
Anytime, man. Thank you, bro.
All right, bro.